Hi guys, welcome back to my channel Style by C. On today's tutorial, we'll be talking on how to make a drape skirt just like what we have in the pictures. And thank you so much for stopping by. Do subscribe, share to friends, like, and give us a thumbs up. And stay tuned for more interesting videos. The first thing I did was to fold my fabric into two. Okay, alright, so now I added extra 7 inches to my actual hip allowance. That's to get the fold I'm working with. Then the next thing I'll be marking is the full length of my skirt. How long do you want your skirt to be? So I'm working with 34 inches. You can decide to work with low, but I'm working with 34. So that after draping it, after the distance, you should be able to, like, the effect will be able to come out very well. So I'm going to be marking. This is my start point, which is also going to be my waist. I don't know if you can see it properly. Let me adjust this. So this is my start point here, which is also going to serve as my waist. Then the next thing I'm going to be marking is my hip measurements. Now, I usually use 9 inches for my hip measurement, but because this is not going to be having a band, I'll be making my hip measurements to 10. Okay, so if your hip, you use 8 inches for your hip measurement, kindly use 9 inches for it. If you use 9, you use 10 for it. So this is what I have now. The next thing I'm going to be marking is my waist measurement, which is 7 inches plus maybe 1 inch. It depends, totally depends. If you are working with 1 inch, you can decide to add 1.5 or 2 inches. Then for my hip, I'm going to mark my hip measurement, which is 9, and I'll be adding extra 7 inches to it, which is here. That is my, both my seam allowance is included in it. Then I'm going to make a rule from my waist to the hip measurement I have. Okay, then I'm going to drag it down. So I'm going to drag it down to the bottom of it. So this is what I have. Then I'll go ahead and cut. Then before I cut, now the choice of where you want your drape to be, if you want it to be in the center, but the picture we're having is by the side. So it's now your choice. Maybe if you want it to be on the left side, on the right side, totally on you. But the next thing we are going to be doing now is to cut this out, use it to cut out the back piece. So for my back piece, what I did was to leave some space before placing my front piece. This space I left here is for my zip allowance. All right, so I'll go ahead and cut it out. All right, then I'll notch the center points, then give it a slit here. So now the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cutting a facing for this. All right, because I'm going to be cutting a facing for my skirt parts. I'm not putting a band to it. It's going to be having a facing. So what I will do is just to place my fabric this way. All right, place your material on top. Now it totally depends on you how long you want your facing to be. If you want it to be very small, if you want it to be long, the choice is all yours. So I'll go ahead and cut it out. Then I'll also do the same thing for my back piece. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I will get the front piece. So this is my front piece. Okay, I'll be working with the odd part of this dress now. So what I'm going to do now is, this is my center point. I'm going to be marking 4 inches away from the center point. Okay, I'm going to mark it all the way down. Remember, I'm marking this on the odd part of this dress, not on the front piece. So after making my markings, what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and run a stitch on my dress, on my skirt. I'll bring this is my back piece. So I'll go over to my sewing machine and stitch on it. Remember, you added 1 inch seam allowance here to the waist. So that I will use to stitch on it. I'll be using 1 inch seam allowance on it. So this is my 1 inch. The same thing at the hip area is going to be 1 inch. So this is what I'm going to be having. I'm going to use this to run a stitch and close it up. So now I'm done shaping the skirts. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be closing up these points. I'm marking where my zip will stop. Okay, so now I'm going to pick up my tape from the waistline. I'll mark 10 inches down. You can decide to work with 9 inches. I'm working with 10 inches, so, or 11 inches. This is where my zip will stop. All right, then I'm going to be running a stitch to close this area up. Remember, we use 1.5 inch for our zip allowance. So from here I'm going to run it down, then I'll attach my zip to this point. The next thing I have to talk on is the facing. You can decide to attach your zip first, after which you attach your facing, or you can decide to attach your facing after which you attach your zip. Whichever one works perfectly well for you, you work with it. So I'll be attaching my facing first, then later which I'll now put my zip. So what I have to do is just run a stitch at the top area, then I'm also going to run a stitch by the side. Making the skirt, this is what I have. The next thing now is the draping part of this skirt. All right, remember we marked 4 inches away from that's 4 inches away from the center point. That is where our drape point is going to be. So what I have to do is I'm going to pick up my thread. This is my needle and thread. Then I'm going to make a gather from this topmost part of it inside, please. So I'm making a gather from it. You follow the line you marked already. So I'm making a gather. I'm going to gather it all the way to the down part of this dress. Okay, now remember this, what the fabric I'm working with is Ankara. If you want to work on this type of dress, it's more preferable to work with silk material or any dropping material, okay, or crepe, proud crepe, all those dropped materials. It will give it the effect more. So this is what I'm going to do. I can decide to get it to the end, I can decide to leave it. now it also depends on how open or how deep you want the slit to be. Okay, so this is what I have. So make a gather, then you go ahead and run a stitch on it using your sewing machine to keep the gathers in place. Okay, depends on how deep you want it to be. Then another thing you have to do is go ahead and arrange these parts how you want it to be on you. Okay, so like I said, this is not a dropping material, so this is just an Akra material, so it's not really going to give the effect of what we're having in that picture, but we gotta try something. So I'll go ahead now and run a stitch on this.